All right, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. My name is Beth Evanson, and I'm the Northeast Georgia Regional Representative for the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. For those of you who may not be familiar with DCA, we are the Community Development Arm and Affordable Housing Agency for the state of Georgia. And our mission is to help create strong, vibrant communities. With over 70 programs and resources, hundreds of millions of dollars are distributed annually through grants, tax credits, loans, and other resources used to support a variety of mission-driven initiatives. On today's webinar, you'll learn about one of the key requirements to accessing state resources, and that's a qualified local government status, which refers to a local government's compliance with a variety of different requirements. To review those requirements with you today, we have Daniel Gaddis, one of DCA's most enthusiastic outreach coordinators and presenter extraordinaire. We will also have DCA Principal Planner Julie Yoder and Research and Data Analyst Jack Brock with us on the webinar. Before we begin, I just want to mention a couple of things. The webinar will be recorded, and I will be sure to share the link with you next week. Please keep your mics muted throughout the presentation, but I do encourage you to ask questions during the webinar using the chat function. And so with that, I will turn it over to Daniel.
Wow, Beth, the expectations have just been dialed up to an 11 at this point. So maybe I hope I can deliver. Generally, we do this presentation on in person, and we've got some fun little tactical tools to try to help drive some of these points home. But we're going to do the best we can on this virtual format. And I just wanted to say thank you all for having me today. As Beth said, I'm the Planning Outreach Coordinator for DCA. And I've been with DCA a really long time, since November of 2023. So still learning and really enjoying my role. I'd like to introduce Julie. She's also Julie Yoder. She's on the call, and she is our planning manager, and she's our principal planner with DCA. Julie, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and your role at DCA?
Yeah, sure. Like Daniel said, I'm Julie Yoder. I've been at DCA for a little over 5 years now, which is kind of unbelievable. And I'm the principal planner, planning manager. So I manage programs like comprehensive plan review, service delivery strategies, capital improvement elements or CIEs, the ever famous annexation arbitration program, and the DRI process, developments of regional impact. So if anybody has any questions about any of those things, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you. Like Beth said, please feel free to use the chat if you have any questions today, and we'll do our best to get you some answers. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you for that, Julie. I'd also like to introduce Jack Brock. He's our research analyst with DCA. He's going to be able to answer some of the in-depth questions regarding hotel motel tax and our other surveys. Jack, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Jack Brock. I've led a lot of our research programs for just over a year now. I'm kind of DCA's expert on the hotel motel tax, along with a good point of contact for the report of local government finance, the GOMI report, or any of those other reports that are required to be turned in order to get funding from the Department of Community Affairs.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. Can everyone give me a thumbs up if you can see this planning program screen? All right, I see a thumbs up. All right, thank you so much. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So today we're going to discuss compliance, everyone's favorite word, especially my 7 and 8-year-old. I'm going to chat about planning programs, some hotel motel tax information, and the potential to impact state administered financial assistance. We want to make sure this presentation is as engaging as possible and that you get all of your questions answered. If you don't understand anything, it's probably because I didn't communicate well enough, or it's just a really tricky topic. So please feel free to utilize the chat. We ask that you keep your mics muted throughout, but if you send a question or a comment through the chat. We have Julie and we have Jack and we have Beth to engage with that. And we very well may just address it for a discussion topic for the whole group. So we do kind of want it to be a little bit less formal and to be able to have an open discussion where needed. All right, let's dive in to compliance. So has anyone in here ever heard of this gentleman, Lowell Darling? Give me a thumbs up if you have. He's pretty famous in the compliance world. Lowell Darling was, let's say, pretty unconventional. He was an artist in Illinois and California. He liked to work with ceramic pieces, and he loved making art in the vein of social commentary. What really gave him his start in public infamy was a piece that he displayed in several galleries that were commenting on overpopulation. After a few months of trying to sell these pieces, exactly 0 of them sold. But Lowell Darling, ever the faithful taxpayer, filed his annual tax return with the IRS, and he noted an $870 deduction for the supplies he used, regardless of the fact that he hadn't sold any pieces. The Internal Revenue Service promptly rejected his deduction, effectively saying that he wasn't an artist because he hadn't sold any art. The IRS classified Mr. Darling as a hobbyist, and this did not make him very happy. And if we were in a comic book, you could describe this as Mr. Darling's origin story. From that point on, he continued to make art, and he decided to purposefully expose the loopholes of the IRS tax code as a protest to the IRS's slight on his livelihood. In an effort to exploit the tax code, one of the items that he exploited was founding an art school. So he established a fake art school named the Fat City School of Fine Art, through which he freely handed out diplomas. Later on, Mr. Darling appealed the IRS's decision, and he actually won. He was eventually refunded his $870 with interest. Boosted by his increased media presence and notoriety, in 1978 he ran a colorful primary campaign for California governor against the incumbent Mr. Jerry Brown. Mr. Darling promised if elected, he would invest in psychic-powered cars, he would do away with parking tickets because of the energy shortage in the 1970s. He said that we should encourage people to park rather than drive. He promised to freeze highway construction and use the money to pay Californians to be themselves. Does anybody want to drop in the chat a guess of how many votes he got in the 1978 primary? All right, well, I'll just tell you. He got 62,000 votes. For context, Oconee County's population is roughly 43,000 residents. And the point of this story, besides this entertainment factor, is to tell you that we ask you to be in compliance with state law, and we really hope that you don't start protesting DCA's compliance with any exaggerated performance art. Okay, so we had a few changes in 2023 with our Office of Planning, so I thought this would be a good time to catch everyone up. We have John West as our division director, and he's over the community development division, which includes our group, the planning group, as well as building codes, downtown development. Lisa Weston is our office manager, and she is over the GIS, planning, and research teams. Kareth Lee is our office admin and the face of our operations, and I'm sure several of you have had a lot of contact with her. Julie Yoder, already introduced, is our principal planning manager extraordinaire, and she manages all the planning programs, and some of which we will talk about today. Elizabeth Smith is our senior planner regional lead, so she handles the regional reviews. Mr. Zane Grinnell is one of our associate planners, and he manages the DRI program, the Development of Regional Impact. And then actually, I need to update this. Mr. Derek Peavy just left us not too long ago, so we are hiring for our his replacement, associate planner. So he will be missed as he works with CERTA. Okay, we're going to start with comp plans. comprehensive plans give communities the ability to take a step back and look at the big picture to help ensure that future development will occur where, when, and how the community and the local government wants. We know right now in your region, in particular, the Northeast Georgia region, we're seeing explosive growth. And just a plug and a reminder that your comprehensive plan is the best tool to manage that growth. These plans are regulated by the Georgia Planning Act of 1989, and that informs the minimum standards for local comp plans. These minimum standards are basically just the rules or what's required in every comp plan. When our office reviews a comp plan, we are basically verifying that these minimum standards are being met and that the necessary elements are included. So listen closely because there may or may not be some pop quizzes happening next. Some examples of some necessary elements are community goals, needs and opportunities, community work program, broadband services, economic development, land use, housing, transportation, and capital improvements element. Who submits a comp plan? It can be a joint effort between a county and all or some of the cities within that county. It can be a county alone, or it can be a city alone that completes and turns in a comprehensive plan. Every community must adopt a DCA approved comp plan every 5 years to maintain qualified local government status. Qualified local government status, also known as QLG. The date that this plan must be adopted by is based on the community selected deadline, which we track in a database. Oh boy, here we go. So we're going to start off pretty easy. And Julie, I will ask that you just take a look at some of the answers and let's celebrate those that get them right. How often is a local government required to submit their comprehensive plan?
All right, Sharon Dickerson first with 5 years.
Let's go, Sharon. All right. Are communities allowed to submit a joint plan with other communities in a county? Oh man, we are on fire.
I think Amy Perkle was first there.
Let's go, Amy. Is broadband a required element in comprehensive plans?
Yes, I think Amy might have been
Yes.
first again.
All right, just imagine me throwing you a DCA swag item like a pin, Amy. So I think you win this round. Good job.
That's right.
All right. So let's see here. Okay, moving on. Everybody still good? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the capital improvement element, or CIE. We in government love an acronym. It is technically part of the comprehensive plan, but is reviewed separately from comp plans, and it's regulated by its very own statute. It's an optional element, but is required for any community that wishes to collect impact fees. Impact fees, you ask, are fees that can be imposed upon developments as a condition of that approval of that development. It helps pay for a share of the cost of system improvements needed to serve. For example, these can go to specific things like roads, parks, public safety facilities. When a community wants to collect impact fees, they complete a CIE document, usually with the help of a consultant. The CIE document talks about the methodology behind what fees they want to collect and at which rate that they will be collected. Once a CIE is approved by DCA and is adopted by the community can then begin collecting impact fees. Now here's the tricky part. Every single year after this, your community that collects impact fees, they must submit an annual CIE update to our office for review based on your selected deadline. These deadlines usually correspond to the community's fiscal year end date, and they are required to use audited numbers. If a community does not adopt a DCA approved CIE annual update by your deadline, unfortunately, this community would lose QLG status. As a reminder, QLG is qualified local government. All right, let's talk about ADR, alternative dispute resolution, and annexation arbitration. These are both very legal heavy processes, and I, nor Jack, nor Julie, nor Beth are attorneys in pretend or in real life, nor is any member of our planning team. Julie often gets asked a lot for legal advice. And if you have any questions about these processes and you're recommended to contact an attorney by Julie or anyone else, don't be offended, please, because that recommendation is in yours and our best interests. For alternative dispute resolution, let's start with this. It is a similar process to annexation arbitration. And while our office has been tasked with managing the process, no one has ever actually asked for this. And generally speaking, ADR provides an alternative dispute resolution for interjurisdictional conflicts. Annexation arbitration, on the other hand, is very popular. In 2019, there were maybe 2 or 3 requests per year. In 2023, there were close to 30 arbitration requests. So annexation arbitration is an increasingly popular conflict resolution process that takes place between a county and a city. DCA facilitates this process as well, but is not materially involved in the deliberation between the jurisdictions. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to skip ahead there. All right. Both ADR, alternative dispute resolution, and annexation arbitration depend on both parties for the process to be successful. In the statutes that govern these processes, it states that parties shall act in good faith throughout the process. If it is found that one party is not acting in good faith, then losing QLG status is a possibility. But we've only ever had to do this once in an annexation arbitration matter. Finally, on this slide, we have DRI, which describes the development of regional impact. It's a development that exceeds a standard for size and scale, and thereby warrants an extra round of preliminary review. This helps ensure that potential impacts on surrounding areas are considered, and any negative impacts can be mitigated. The regional commission, your regional commission, which you guys have an excellent one, is responsible for administering the DRI process and determining whether a project meets the DRI threshold. Failure of a community to properly file a project that exceeds these thresholds, it results first in a warning from the regional commission, and then further failure to report projects will be reported to the DCA board and can result in the revocation of QLG status. We've never had to have that go so far. If there's ever any doubt that a project meets or exceeds the DRI threshold, we strongly recommend you guys reach out to your regional commission. Julie, I'm going to do a quick pause. I can't see the chat right now. How we doing? Do we have any action going on?
No action.
No action. Okay. Everyone's understanding it. Anybody have any questions that they want to drop in the chat or any kind of clarification that they need before we move on? All right. I'll take that deafening silence as a no. All right. Moving away now from QLG and into SDS or SDA. I told y'all government loves acronyms. These are both administered by the planning team, and it's easy to get confused. SDS compliance and QLG compliance are not the same thing, completely unrelated. Not being a QLG or not having a qualified local government status is not a good thing, but not having a compliant SDS is astronomically worse. SDS, Service Delivery Strategy. It's a process that gives local governments and authorities the opportunity to reach agreement on the delivery of services in an effective and cost-efficient manner to Georgia's citizens. Essentially, helping ensure that local governments are not double paying and citizens aren't receiving duplicative services. SDSs are required for every county and city in the state. This is a county-driven document, not a city-driven document. So SDSs are submitted for a specific county, and it must include all the cities within that county, even those only partially within the boundary. The SDS basically describes who provides what services, where those services are provided, and how those services are funded. It is up to the county and the cities to determine which services to include. You might want to listen closely because there may be some more pop quizzes coming soon. Typical services might include fire, water and sewer, solid waste collection, animal control. An SDS update is only required every 10 years and typically falls on the same date as every other comp plan update for a county, which, as I previously mentioned, is due how often? Every 5 years. So SDS is due every 10, comp plans are due every 5. Local governments must revise their service delivery strategy and submit to DCA for verification when any of these following things occur. Whenever the service delivery or revenue distribution arrangements are changed, or when a county decides to change how a services are provided or funded. In the event of a creation, an abolition, or a consolidation of a local government. So, for example, when a city is located outside of the county, annexes property into the county for the first time. Or whenever the county and the municipalities in the county agree that it's appropriate to do so. Basically, if anything changes. If a community fails to have an SDS verified by DCA by the date of their 10-year selected deadline, they no longer qualify for any state administered financial assistance. That includes no grants. That includes no loans. It also includes no permits that will be issued to the government or authority because they are no longer compliant with the Service Delivery Act. This is called SDA noncompliance or SDS noncompliance. All right. Let's check for some understanding. All right, Julie, you manning the chat?
I'm here.
Okay. What does SDS stand for?
Oh, Sharon Dickerson, Service Delivery Strategy.
Let's go. All right. How often?
Oh, Sharon again, 10 years.
Do we need to check Sharon for some performance enhancing drugs over there? Has she got any PEDs?
Yeah.
Who submits the SDS, the county or the city?
Sharon, county.
Let's
Several
go.
counties here. Amy, Cindy, county.
Excellent. Excellent. What are some examples of some services that might be covered in the SDS?
Oh, Sharon, solid waste, animal control, water. Ashley,
Sharon.
fire. Amy, fire police.
Excellent. Aren't library services included in this, Julie?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in here and Sharon, I'm trying to figure out where Sharon's from. I don't see it. Sharon, thanks for showing up today. I appreciate you.
She is from Watkinsville. She is the city administrator in Watkinsville and is doing a great job. And so for those of you that are in Region 5 that are just absolutely killing these pop quizzes, next time I'm in your area, I'm going to drop off some DCA swag. I've got some cool pens, some nice writing pens that I'll bring by.
That's right. That's great, Beth. Thank you. Oh, we got one more here. What are some penalties for a local government if they're non-compliant with the SDS?
Ashley Davis, no grants. Absolutely. Cindy, no state or federal funding. So federal funding is tricky. You can still get federal funding, but if it's funneled through the state, so if it's federal funding funneled through DCA, for example, then that would be affected. But if you're going straight to the federal government, then that would not be affected. So I'm glad
Thanks
you
for
said
that,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to disambiguate the terms. That's right. I scored above 1,000 on my SAT. So that's all the DCA stuff to cover. We're going to talk about some of these highlighted items here that are not DCA, but they are connected. E-Verify, sanctuary cities, and local government audit reports. So they're not run by DCA, but they can affect our programs. All three of these programs are run by the Georgia Department of Audits and Accounts, DOAA. If an organization, local government has trouble with any of these items, we're not responsible and really can't do anything about it. We would recommend you to contact DOAA. The General Assembly of Georgia requires local governments to participate in federal E-Verify programs when they're hiring or contracting with people. The law that was written about it ties this to QLG status, which is, as you remember, our comprehensive plan mechanism for qualified local government. So if a local government and authority are not filing their E-Verify documents with DOAA, then DCA is notified, and we have to add them to our list of disqualified governments or loss of QLG status. Sanctuary cities has this next one. You may remember this was particularly a very hot topic politically. A few years ago, local governments are required to certify to DOAA in Georgia that they are not a sanctuary city every single year. And if you don't, DOAA has to tell us that to put them on a list of non-compliant governments. And it's not just loss of QLG status. The Georgia legislature tied these penalties to the same thing as being SDS non-compliant. So as a reminder, that's no permits, no grants, no state funding whatsoever. So the penalties are pretty severe for being non-compliant with sanctuary cities policy. Typically what happens is we see local governments who are out of compliance. A lot of times we just notice that they've missed the deadline or they've forgotten to submit their documents. So very typically easily to correct them. However, the local government audit one is not very easy to correct. As many of you know, your local government is required to have an audit of your finances done every year and submitted to DOAA. If you don't, you lose access to a variety of funding opportunities. This is very similar to some of our research team and our requirements there for the reporting in terms of the act of non-compliance. But fixing your local government audit can often take quite a bit of time and sometimes money. So again, just as a reminder, when a local government has issues with any of these, we recommend that we require that you coordinate through DOAA. We don't have any involvement with these and we can't answer questions about the program. So I did include the email, so jot that down if you think you might have some questions for DOAA. Okay, I can see Sharon now at the edge of her seat. She's excited. Who will dethrone the city of Watkinsville here for this pop quiz? Are we ready? What does DOAA stand for?
Oh, Sharon, Department of Audits and Accounts.
Jack, will you go get Sharon a glass of water because she is on fire right now?
I'm on it. I'm on it.
All right.
She said coffee.
All
Coffee,
right.
noted.
Coffee. Is DOAA and DCA the same agency?
Amy, no.
No.
Sharon, no. Good.
right. Who can name one program under DOAA?
Ashley Davis, E-Verify.
That's right. Ashley, you've been showing up in a big way today too. Thank you, ma'am. Where are you from, Ashley?
Social Circle.
All right. Then we have, what are the penalties for a local government for being sanctuary cities non-compliant?
Sharon, no permits, no grants.
That's right. No state funding.
Amy, lost QLG, and then some.
So that we would, if you are non-compliant with sanctuary cities, you are on the SDS non-compliant list. Okay, great job on that one, guys. This is just sort of a way to visualize this in a different way. Also a way for Julie to slide in an excellent meme that we all love and appreciate. So just as a reminder, you can see QLG on the left side of your screen and then SDS compliance on the right side. If you lose QLG status, you do lose access to DCA programs. So these are some programs that are linked to QLG status. And by the way, it's not just DCA. There's other state agencies that you will not have access to if you lose QLG status. And here are a few more. As you can see, GFA is there. I know several communities in Georgia are looking to upgrade their wastewater and their treatment plants. So if you lose QLG status for not submitting your comprehensive plan on time, then you would potentially lose access to any GFA loan, as well as some coastal incentives grants and land and water conservation programs through the Georgia DNR.
And if you ever have a question about loss of QLG status or Service Delivery Act compliance regarding a specific program, let's say you have a permit request out to GDOT, we recommend reaching out directly to that organization, reach out to GDOT and see if your request is affected, because it's sort of at the discretion of each agency and department.
Okay, thank you, Julie. All right, you can also check through our website, check to the planning office to see, this is sort of a screenshot of what it looks like to show with QLG loss or SDS loss. So check out our website for that, and this will allow you to stay up to date. All right, before we dive into some of our research requirements, I am going to just do a quick pause. Anything that we've covered so far, whether it's comp plan, SDS, DOAA, any questions that you can drop in the chat that we can address now, or any thoughts? All right. Well, we are going to move ahead. We are going to have a break a little bit later, but we're going to go ahead and power through while the coffee is still working. Okay, we're going to pivot to the Office of Research. This is another arm within our office, and research collects information on government and authority operations and finances, and it makes that information available to stakeholders, which include you all. And of course, we don't do all this for fun, even though I think some of us do think it's fun. We do this because this is statutorily mandated by the Georgia General Assembly. You can see some examples for local governments. We have the GOME, the RLGF, of course, hotel motel tax, debt issuance report, and then the survey for wage and salary, and updating your local government contacts. For the authorities in the room, we actually have an ARF, an annual authority registration and financial report, as well as the debt issuance report. All right, we're going to go dive into one of the most requested, one of the most hot topics, information specifically about hotel motel tax. And we're going to talk about the lodging receipt. If you are a local government that is imposing a hotel motel tax, and many in this room are, your local government is required to expend that tax in strict accordance with Georgia code. There are different requirements depending on which rate that you tax at. So if you look down at the bottom left, 2% through 8%, that's where we're going to be spending a lot of time in this next little bit. Some brief history. Way back in 1975, the Georgia General Assembly permitted counties and cities to impose a tax of no more than 3%. Brunswick, City of Brunswick was quick to jump on this the very next year, and they adopted the 3% rate in December of '76. Fast forward to the year 2008, and there were 24 different authorization paragraphs and rates available. The General Assembly decided to clean things up at that point and reduce the authorizations for hotel motel tax down to 3 options. And in 2021, with the passage of House Bill 317, the lawmakers addressed a definition of innkeepers, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. Broadly, this slide showing you how many communities are collecting across the state and the different tax rates and corresponding governments. Through some preliminary research, Beth Evenson sent out the attendee list. I didn't see any local governments here in this list that are going to be charging the 3% rate. So we have 0, and then and 5, 6, 7, and 8% in this room. Like I said, there's several communities in here that are not charging a hotel motel tax, and if you are considering one, or if you want to pass an ordinance, you can absolutely do that. And here's a QR code that takes you directly to the hotel motel tax website, so you can snap that, and you can have that handy. We're also going to go a little bit deeper on this process on the next slide here. As you can see here, a tax of 6 to 8% if you want to tax at a higher rate. It does require some extra steps, but it's very common. All right, some of you all who might be considering to start collecting hotel motel tax revenue or changing the rate, there is a process. If you want to collect at a 6 to 8% level, you need to reach out to your local congressional delegation. You specify at which rate that you want to tax, and then specify some projects, which projects will be funded. A portion of your tax proceeds have to fund a project that will expand or create a physical attraction which is open to the public. And you'll also need to specify specifically how those funds, those tax proceeds, are allocated. And I can let you read the rest of that information here. All right, so now we're going to try to provide some examples of how these funds are expended. And we're only going to show, for simplicity's sake, 3%, 5%, and 8%. All right, I mentioned earlier that, of course, we don't have any of you in the room that are charging or taxing at a 3% rate, but let's just pretend that we are. You can see that for every dollar that is charged on the lodging receipt, 3 pennies, 3 of the dollar, can go to non-restricted which that could be the general fund or any legal purpose in your local government. When I do this activity with in person, I have some props, like we have a fire truck and we have a magazine, and then we also have a little toy dinosaur. And so what I tell the attendees is, for example, you take 3 pennies and we have these little fake pennies, and we drop them into the bucket and we put in the fire truck into the general fund bucket. So that's sort of how we visualize it here, but you're just going to have to make do with me describing it. So those 3 pennies are non-restricted. Okay, so now we're going to move up in our taxing rate. We're going to say that we're a 5% community, and we're going to address this a little bit later. But this basically means we have a new area to define, and that is the TCT bucket, the Tourism, Convention, and Trade Show bucket. That's TCT. Okay, let's talk about what TCT is. TCT, according to statute, it is planning, conducting, or participating in programs of information and publicity designed to attract or advertise tourism, conventions, or trade shows. 2 major points I want you all to take away from this slide. Number 1, if you have any questions about the appropriateness of your TCT spending and if it's in compliance, we will always tell you to ask your city or county attorney. We formally, as an office, cannot offer advice on the appropriateness of expenditures, but we can describe to you what is in the statute. Secondly, TCT funds are expended by the Destination Marketing Organization, or DMO. We can say generally what qualifies as TCT are brochures, billboards, magazines. You see the rest. I won't read the whole slide to you. Again, we will ask you to contact your city or county attorney on the appropriateness of your expenditures for your local government. So we would say that this is a common question, and a wise man once told me, a wise man by the name of Jack Brock, who may or may not be among us right now, as told me to think about TCT in the context of a July 4th fireworks event. The statute says that planning and advertising about this July 4th event, that is appropriate. It's good to go. Billboards, social medias, letters, flyers, magazines, all considered TCT. But the actual purchase of the fireworks themselves for that event is not TCT. Again, the definition says programs of information and publicity, or an advertisement for an event. Earlier, I dropped a term called a Destination Marketing Organization, or DMO, on you, and I can see what you're thinking, which is exactly what is that? And I will read the slide. Please forgive me. I'm going to read the slide here. It is a private sector. It's important we bolded that. Nonprofit org or other private entity which is exempt under Section 501c6. So this is a 501c6 organization. It's a private sector nonprofit. Supported by the tax under this article, government budget allegations, private membership, or any combination thereof. The primary responsibilities of this 501c6 private sector nonprofit are to encourage travelers to visit their destinations, encourage meetings and expositions in the area, and provide visitor assistance and support as needed. Again, the statute says a chamber of commerce, a convention and visitors bureau, a regional travel association, or any other private group organized for similar purposes, which is exempt from federal income tax under 501c6 of the IRS. And I'm going to go ahead and just pause because this is, again, this is an issue, or this is a topic that gets a lot of interest and a lot of questions. And so if you want to unmute yourself if you have a question, or if you want to ask some hypotheticals, I'm going to go ahead and allow you all that opportunity now.
Daniel, just a reminder that I will send out a link to this recording sometime next week. I think it takes our marketing department a few days to kind of condense it and to get it where we can send it out. But I will send this out too, along with the slides.
That sounds great, Beth. Thank you. All right, Jack, take it away.
Yes, so the code is pretty clear. It says you would need to have to read the question in case no one's monitoring the chat. If we are using the chamber for our TCT, do we need to have an agreement with them? Yes, you do. The code is clear. It says contract or contracts with these organizations, so you do need to have a contract or MOU in place with any destination marketing organization, including the Chamber of Commerce.
It's a great question, Amy. Thank you. If you have a question, it's very likely someone else has the same question. All right. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. And we're going to talk about DDAs and Main Street. We get this question very often regarding those TCT funds being allocated to downtown development authorities or Main Street. As a reminder, it has to have a private nonprofit status with 501c6 to receive these funds. This slide does provide a lot of guidance to your local government. There needs to be regular ongoing discussions between your local jurisdiction and the destination marketing organization. Prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, the local government and the DMO need to have very clear expectations about these funds that will be received, how they're going to be received, when they'll be received, and to make sure all parties are on the same page. I dropped our a QR code of our hotel motel tax website on this slide as well. It is required by statute that the jurisdiction and the DMO have an established contract or MOU. Okay. Now we're a 5% community. We're going to take our 5 pennies for every dollar that we collect. We are a 5% taxing community. And by my records, we have several of you in this room that are 5%. That's Eastman, Jefferson, Monticello, Rincon, Social Circle, Watkinsville, Elbert County, Greene County, Jackson County, and Newton County, as according to our records. And so when we talk about those 5 pennies, 3 of those pennies can go to non-restricted or general fund, or they can go to any legal general fund purpose in the city, county, or consolidated government. If you're a 5% community, you do have to take those 2, and you have to take those 2 pennies and put them into the TCT. And that has to be expended by the destination marketing organization. This can go to plan for tourism, conventions, or trade show. Okay. I'm going to go back. 5%. Does that make sense to you all? All right. Yes. Jack, we have a question. Our city manager wants to do Main Street, but I thought it was a DDA program.
Yeah, I was just looking into a contact for our downtown development
Yeah,
team.
it was
I'm only an expert
Jessica.
on the. Oh, sorry, Julie, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was Jessica Worthington, but I think she's taking a new position. So
And I can help too. So Main Street and Downtown Development Authorities often coexist, but you don't have to have you don't have to be a designated Main Street community to have a DDA. So while they often exist together, they can exist separately. And so Gail, I'm happy to talk with you about that too. And we can connect you with our Office of Downtown Development.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Daniel, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate you. Yes, we're moving on to 8%. And so that gives us a new bucket called TPD, Tourism Product Development. And these are for those communities who are taxing at a 6 to 8%. And we're going to come back to those in a minute. But first, let's define what is TPD. In this definition in the statute, we actually have a little bit more specificity than in the TCT. I do want to point out that TPD funds can be restricted. It can also go back to your destination marketing organization as well. However, if you have a physical project that you want to work towards, you have an option to allocate some of those funds here. The statute says TPD is for creation or expansion of physical attractions which are available and open to the public. And they improve the destination appeal to visitors, they support visitors' experience, and are used by those visitors. They may include capital costs and operating expenses. You see there, we have a lot of questions about who can these TPD funds be spent by, and there's some options. Thankfully, the lawmakers did provide us some actual examples, and we are very grateful for the specificity in the law. So these are in response to regular questions that our office gets. They have to be spent in the fiscal year in which they are collected, which can give some people some heartburn from time to time, but that's what the law says. Funds not spent towards TPD must otherwise be spent for TCT. You can use these funds collected for TPD to secure debt for larger projects. As long as it is a legal expenditure, there are no restrictions on the recipient. Should be identified as TPD in the annual budget. And again, it has to be open to visitors, used by visitors. So we've got our 3 buckets here. And as a reminder of those, we're going to pretend we're an 8% community. We have several 8%ers who signed up. Those are Brazelton, Covington, Douglasville, Livonia, Marietta, Ringgold, Savannah who are attending this webinar. We have several 7% communities. Those are Athens, Clarke County. We have City of Metter and we have City of Winder. And then of the 6%, we have Elberton and St. Mary's and Oconee County. Those are my records. So we're visualizing those. We're going to say eight pennies here, and we're going to take 3 of those pennies that we know have to go into the general fund. And then we know that 3.5, 43.75% has to go to TCT, and then that leaves a penny and a half or 18.75% must be used for TPD. If it's not used for TPD, then it has to go into TCT. Our team compiled a common questions list, and so we'll read those. Does Exhibit A count as TCT? We will refer you to the definition, and I'm a broken record at this point, but city attorney on the appropriateness. Can I use some TPD funds to pay for a city building that has a visitor section? We would recommend separating the funds in this case so that those TPD funds are only going to the visitor section. Does DCA have a way to check how many short-term vacation rentals exist in a jurisdiction? Or how much hotel motel tax that they owe? We do not track that. We do recommend reaching out to those companies directly or hire a third-party investigator to check if those hotel motel tax collections are correct. If you want to know how many short-term vacation rentals are in your jurisdiction, we recommend passing a local ordinance requiring registration of short-term vacation rentals. Let's say you're a 6% community or even a 5% and you're considering moving up to 8% and you're wondering, are there drawbacks? And it's up to your jurisdiction to determine, but it's unlikely that changing the rate or raising the rate will affect the amount of visitors to your community. I don't think many people who are considering staying in a jurisdiction are going to be shopping around for the hotel motel tax rate, whether it's 6% or 8%, making decisions based on that. Maybe they are. But your local government knows best how your citizens would react to a tax increase. There is no monetary disincentive from the state to move up to an 8%. If you're wanting to know broadly how much is being collected statewide, we see that in fiscal year 2023, these collections have risen to approximately $500 million. And I think Georgia's tourism industry has really learned of the benefits of hotel motel tax collection and has risen sharply in the last 5 years. We're going to talk about the Performance Review Board a little bit later. So I'm going to pause there, come back to it. And this is a great time to go for a quick break. So it is 10:58. Beth, is it reasonable to you to have a 10-minute break and then we'll finish out strong?
Yes, that sounds
Okay,
good.
great. All right, y'all. So I have 10:59. Let's call it 11:10 a.m. Let's be back in our seats and ready to drive home. All right, we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. Okay, guys, welcome back. We are on the home stretch here, so thanks for staying with us. Short-term vacation rentals, very common question that we get and a pretty recent development. Many local governments have questions about short-term vacation rentals. House Bill 317, which went into effect in 2021, it does require Airbnbs, Verbos of the world to collect and remit not only the hotel motel tax, but also the state's $5 transportation fee that were usually just collected by traditional hotels. And of course, now the definition of innkeeper has been expanded to now be inclusive of short-term vacation rentals. These collections are subject to the same restrictions as any other hotel motel tax collection. If you are having issues with the rates of short-term vacation rentals in your community, make sure you reach out directly to those platforms. House Bill 317 has no impact on any regulations that you may impose on short-term vacation rentals, such as limiting the number in your area, such as requiring annual registration, insurance requirements, etc. So that you can make the best decision for your local government and your community regarding short-term vacation rentals, and House Bill 317 doesn't impact that. Okay, so let's say you've got your DMO identified. You know what is being spent on tourism, convention, and trade show. And you've also identified your tourism product development and what physical creation or expansion of a product that serves the public. And now we're within 180 days of the end of your fiscal year. It is now time to submit your hotel motel tax report to our office. The local government submits this hotel motel tax report, and in this report, we are looking for a confirmation of the rate. We need to see the ordinance passed by your local government, the revenues collected, and the expenditures, aka what's the percentage that you allocated to TCT and what percentage are you allocating to TPD. And also with that, we are asking for the project contractor information schedule, the PCIS, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. By the way, this uses the same login as DCA's other reports. PCIS, Project Contractor Information Schedule. Here we see the statute details what this is. This component is completed by the contractor receiving restricted funds. So have your DMO, your destination marketing organization, submit this PCIS to your local government and then package that into the hotel motel tax report. All right. Now, the reason I moved ahead from those frequently asked questions earlier were because it addresses the performance review board, and I wanted to talk about that first before we go into those questions. We do regularly have complaints from citizens alleging misappropriation of hotel motel tax funds. In this case, we have a mechanism, and I'd like to introduce you to the performance review board. To investigate a claim made by someone, there is a small fee of $100 submitted to our office by June 1st. When our office usually receives a complaint, we get our research analyst, Jack Brock, on it, who begins investigating allegations. And this investigation process includes looking at the most recent hotel motel tax report, in addition to combing through correspondence with the complainant. Mr. Brock would potentially conduct interviews with the local government, with the complainant, and maybe the destination marketing organization. Mr. Brock then compiles his findings. He submits them to the Performance Review Board, at which point the Performance Review Board makes a recommendation to our commissioner, Commissioner Nunn, for him to make a ruling. And there he is. And I'm still working on getting him that windbreaker, but we think that's a good look for Jack. Consequences for this, for misappropriation of those funds, could be a dismissal of the claim if it doesn't have any validity, or for a local government to stop collecting the hotel motel tax, or if a local government and DMO they may be requested or maybe required to spend funds in a different way to make sure they ensure compliance. Jack, any more details on this that I missed or that you'd like to add on, or does that cover it?
I think that covers it pretty well. The Performance Review Board, they meet once a year usually. They are made up of appointees from high officials in the state, such as the appointees from the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the house, and then DCA's commissioner gets a few appointees on it. So it's we like to say it's not a small deal, but it's not anything major to be stressed about because complaints don't come in all that often. We usually get about one a year. But it is something good to know that, like, hey, I should be spending this hotel motel tax correctly in order to make sure that the Performance Review Board doesn't come into the picture.
So we talked about that $100 fee if there's a complaint. So yes, that is there to act as a deterrent so that Jack's not conducting investigations all day long, even though he would look awesome in those aviators and windbreaker. What should a government do if the restricted funds are not spent in the fiscal year? Remember, the statute requires that those funds have to be spent in the fiscal year in which they were collected. We would ask you to speak to your attorney about how to come into compliance with this code as quickly as possible. How is a destination marketing organization supposed to operate safely if they're not allowed to build out a rainy day fund using the hotel motel tax? We would encourage you to diversify your revenue streams so that TCT hotel motel tax money isn't your only revenue. Again, the code says all restricted hotel motel tax money has to be spent in the fiscal year in which it was collected. I know we've got some folks who signed up from DMOs. We might have some questions about any of this before we move on to some of our surveys. I'll pause for a few seconds. All right. Home stretch here, guys. Now we're going to talk about the GOMI, the Government Management Indicators. This is an annual survey, collects information on your operations of your local government, services, and the management. DCA is required to maintain and publish information on these indicators. They actually have 9 sections. Those include management, services, public facilities, planning, zoning, and development, economic development, financial management practices, public safety, form of government, e-government, and certifications. The GOMI is due by June 30th, and you'll see that is true for any government, regardless of the size, type, or the fiscal year that your government has. Each local government does have a unique username and password. You can email me, or you can email Jack, or email research@dca.ga.gov, and we'll be able to get that information to you. So we have the GOMI. We also have the RLGF, and I don't have a funny image or meme associated with that acronym, so you just get the screenshot of our website. Broadly, RLGF reports on just what you think. It's a report of local government finances. So it's about your finances. Important to note, this is different from your annual audit that is due to DOAA. This is due for all local governments, regardless of size and type, within 6 months of your fiscal year. As a reminder, this is often completed and submitted to us by your auditor. And then in some cases, DOAA will provide you an audit extension. We understand that happens regularly, that a local government needs to reach out to DOAA and say, hey, we need an extension. If that happens, that is fine. Just let us know that you've received an extension. It could be as simple as providing us the email from DOAA or a screenshot stating that you've received an extension for your audit, and we can provide that extension to you for your RLGF. This survey, just like all the other surveys, have that same login. All right, who's still with us? We're going to bring back the pop quiz. All right, Julie, RLGF, what does it stand for? Who's going to bring it home?
Let's see. Oh, Sharon, report of local government finance.
Of course it's Sharon. You rock, Sharon.
Oh, there comes Amy.
Amy's still in the mix. All right. Yes, the report of local government finances.
Amy said, how did she even type it that fast?
Sharon, is that why you asked for the presentation last week? You just wanted to get ahead of this? Is that, I was wondering about that.
Pre-typed. She's copying and pasting.
Right. When is the RLGF due?
Amy, 6 months after year end.
After year end, it's within 6 months. So it is due at the fiscal year end, within 6 months of your fiscal year end.
Fiscal year end. There you go.
All right. What about if DOA provides you an extension on your audit? Is your RLGF still due at the same time?
Amy says no.
That is correct. All right, this is a bonus one. How will you let DCA know that you've received an extension from DOAA?
Amy, send a screenshot. Sharon, notify them.
Notify them, yes. Notify. Jack, and I don't want to overstep. RLGF, is a screenshot of the email. Is that appropriate for your office?
Yeah, screenshot the email, even forwarding just the email, any sort of proof that you've gotten that extension from DOA, just send it to research@dca.ga.gov, just our research email box, and one of my team members will take care of it and make sure you get the same extension on your RLGF that you did on your audit.
Excellent. All right. We also have debt issuance report. If you are a local government or authority that issues debt $1 million or plus, you are required to report that issuance. By state law, we are required to publish annually a report of statewide indebtedness. How do you complete the debt issuance report? I went ahead and dropped the QR code for the portal for our website. It is due within 60 days of the issuance of any new debt, regardless of the term, and that is, of course, new debt or refunding. Almost always submitted by the bond attorney working on a project. Next, we have the ARF, the Annual Authority Registration and Financial Report. It is for authorities to fill out. And if you are a recognized authority in the state of Georgia, regardless of the type, the creation method, or your degree of independence, this report is required annually to be submitted to our office. You can see that it requires a registration component as well as the finances of that authority. Speaking of ALF, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's time for an ALF reboot. It's time for this next generation to know ALF. The ARF is due 6 months after your fiscal year end date. Each authority has a unique user ID and information. Password. Okay, guys, you might be wondering, what do we do with all this? It's required by statute. Why does DCA have to collect this information? Well, your lawmakers have written laws over the years to require us to collect information. This information does inform public policy, and it's also a way for government transparency to be encouraged so that other local governments and stakeholders can understand how our governments operate. So we think it's a great thing. We do understand that it requires a lot of work and it requires organization, but point of this is to tell you we don't do this just for fun. We do it to be in compliance with the law.
Hey, Daniel, I'm going to interrupt real quick for a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Sharon asked, the debt issuance report says is it just bonds, not loans? And it is, yes, you are correct. It is just bonds, not loans. Thank you for giving me the time to look into that.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for that question, Sharon. Appreciate that. Just a recap of compliance with our office. We have the RLGF and the GOMI. We do require these. I mean, these are surveys that are required on condition of receiving state appropriated funds. So think about them as the same consequences as losing QLG as if you're in non-compliance with RLGF and GOMI. In terms of compliance, the hotel motel tax, you have to provide us the hotel motel tax report as a condition of continuing to collect the tax. For the ARF, you have to be in compliance with submitting the report to issue any new debt or to receive any funding from any state agency. We have an up-to-date dashboard. If you have any questions, you can email there, and of course, snap that QR code, which will tell you about your compliance of your local government with all of these topics that we talked about today. Please check with our office early and often because we can help you get in compliance so that you can apply for our programs. And of course, you know Beth Evenson well. You have her information, beth.evenson@dca.ga.gov. And then, of course, we have our planning email address, my email address, as well as research. And that's our information there. All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. And thank you for the questions and the activity. And I'll stick around for another maybe 5 minutes or so if you have any questions. I think our team will as well. And I'll turn it over to you, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you again, Daniel, Jack, and Julie. I really appreciate you all taking the time to get out this information. We've got some amazing communities in this region statewide, and I want to make sure that you all have done everything that you can so that you can take advantage of the resources that we have at DCA. And if there's anything we can do to help you, let me know. Before we go, just want a quick plug for the Georgia Academy for Economic Development. I know that some of you have gone through that. We have classes coming up. If you're interested in that, let me know and I will get you that list. In fact, I'll probably just send that out when I send out the recording next week. So I don't have anything else. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Thank you again, and let me know if there's anything I can do. Y'all have a good day and a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. I love the audience frame. It's Jack sitting on the top row.
Like the Brady Bunch.
That's right. Beth, did you get a number? I never looked to see how many actually were in.
I think at the top it was probably 35 or 40 maybe was the most we had. I think one time I looked and it was 36. But I can go back and double check. But
that's good. I mean, compare that to our in-persons, we didn't quite have that much. So
very cool. All right. Well, I don't see anyone else hanging around with questions. So thank y'all again. I really do appreciate it.
thanks for asking us. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Beth.
Yes.
I'm sorry for all the confusion. I'm glad we finally got it scheduled and got it done.
No worries.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Y'all have a good one. Bye.
You guys.